Well, today we're going to finish up our series on skin in the game, and we've talked about a lot of things. Today we're going to conclude that as we talk about a sense of purity. So we'll be in 2 Peter chapter 3 today as well, as we conclude this series up this morning. When I was a kid, we moved around a little bit, but one of the places we lived for a couple of years was in a place called Lockport, Kentucky. And it had such an original name because it was on a lock that had a port on the Kentucky River. Thus, Lockport. Yeah, there's nothing fancy about that, I'm sorry. There's nothing to that. But we lived on the Kentucky River, and our house, actually there was a creek that came off of the Kentucky River, and our house was a couple hundred yards up the hill from this creek. And in the summer, I spent 2 summers there, and in the summer I so enjoyed walking down the backyard to the creek and fishing most of the day. I just enjoyed that. It was a good time. Mom would have had a big triangle that she had attached to the side of the house, and she would step out the door and she would ring it. And then I would hear that, because you could hear that basically all around the earth. But anyway, she would ring it, and I would hear that, and I would come up because there was something that she needed. Usually it meant dinner. But anyway, so I got up early, went down. Now, here's the only trouble that we had, is that when it rained a lot, the creek would rise. And, it's not a big deal, not a big problem. Well, it had rained the week before. The creek had risen, but it had subsided, and I went down to fish like I always do. And I didn't think about this. And I guess that was really the problem, is I didn't think about it. And so I stroll down there, and I'm standing on the bank of the river, and I try to get, or the creek, and I try to get, somewhat close. And I cast my line off into the creek. I'm fishing for catfish on this particular day, and so it sinks to the bottom because that's where the catfish live. And so I'm standing there. I'm holding my fishing pole, and a strange sensation comes. I felt like I was shrinking. It was the oddest feeling. But I'm standing there, and I've cast off, and I'm standing there, and so I do a little test. I put my eyes on the horizon, and I'm just standing there waiting. I'm feeling for the line, but I'm standing there, I'm just staring at the thing, and then I'm just slowly going down. And I'm like, this is really odd, and I look down, and I can't see my feet any longer. Because when the creek rises, it gets really muddy. Now, I know that as an adult. I didn't pay any attention to it as a 12-year-old who had grown up mostly in the city, and now I live in the country, and I'm trying to figure things out. And so I can't see my feet, but no big deal. One, I'm 12, 2, I'm a guy, so it's like, it's nothing. Let's just keep fishing, There's no big deal. And so I keep fishing, and I get a bite, and so I reel it in, and he's pulling hard, and I'm trying to reel it in, and he's pulling hard, and by the time that what I caught gets to me, and I realize that it's just a large limb, and not the record-breaking fish that I had hoped for, I realize something has gone incredibly wrong, because when I put my fishing pole down, the ground is now at my thighs. And you try to move, and you hear that that squishing sound if you're stuck in the mud, and I'm sitting, what am I going to do? I can't holler because nobody can hear where I am, because I don't have the triangle with me. Mom's got that at the house. So the only way out of this is I'm going to lose a few articles of clothing for me to get out of this mess. And so I'm like, what am I going to do? So when you try to push off the ground to get out, your hand goes down. So this, and I'm like, okay, I can't do that. And so this is like almost quicksand feeling. I finally get out of the predicament, and there's two holes that have boots and socks and pants and everything else in the two holes. And I'm like, well, what am I going to do now? Oh, heck with it, let's just keep fishing, and I'm just like, so I keep fishing, and then Mom rings the bell, and so I'm like, okay, now what? So I try to yank out everything out of the holes that I can. I lost a shoe that day, but I make it up to the house, and as I'm approaching the house, this is what I look like as I'm approaching the house. And as I'm approaching the house, I just about get to the back door, and the door swings open, and Mom says, "Stop!" I'm like, what? What? You are not coming in the house looking like that. I'm like, well, I got to go take a shower. Not in my house, you're not. You go get the garden hose and you wash off before you come in the house. She's like, you can't come in here that dirty. No, that's not going to work for me. I'm like, Mom, no. You're not coming in the house. I tell that story because it relates to our verse today. Because in 2 Peter chapter 3 and verse 14, it says this, "Therefore, dear friends, while you wait for these things, make every effort to be found without spot or blemish in His sight, at peace." Make every effort to be without spot or blemish. Mom was like, if you want to come in this house, you're going to have to make a better effort at being without all of that you've got on. You're going to have to get rid of all that before you come in the house. Now, the thing that we have to understand is that once you put your faith into Jesus Christ, there's nothing you can do to earn that. When Peter says make every effort, he's not talking about from somebody who hasn't placed faith in Jesus Christ in order to place faith in Jesus Christ. Nothing you can do. It's already been done for you. Acceptance is the only avenue that you have. Acceptance or rejection. That's the choice you have for that. But once you've come into the family of God by faith in Jesus Christ, Peter says you got to put some skin in this game. You've got to make an effort at this. You need to be making every effort to stay or to be found without spot or blemish. And I wonder how many times I get up, go about my day, I go back down, I lay back down, I get up the next day, and it's as if I never washed off. I'm still that muddy kid that's got nasty all over him, and I'm not doing anything about it. Now, the big church word here is confession, is that we need to be making confession. Confession is the idea of becoming clean because I am, it's the idea of come clean. You've heard that phrase, come clean. The idea before God of making every effort to be without spot or blemish is that I'm coming before the Lord. I'm already in the family. I've already placed faith in Jesus. Mom was still my mom, and that wasn't going to change, but I wasn't allowed into the joy of the house if I didn't come clean, and I didn't get clean. And I believe that so many of us are losing out on this joy of our salvation, this joy that we can have of a close relationship with God. We're in the family, but we haven't come clean. And we're not coming clean on a regular basis. We're not staying up on these things. And we wonder, why am I dealing with this? Why am I having a difficult time? Why don't I seem to have any joy about this anymore? Why is this? And it might be that we need to evaluate, am I making every effort to be without spot or blemish? How do we do that? Let me talk us through a few things. There's two things that we can do, or not do for that matter. And these are big, guys who smarter than I am, had time to think about this, came up with these things. And it's called the sin of commission and the sin of omission. And it's like, I guess they wanted to rhyme. I don't know. I don't understand, but maybe they wanted to rhyme. But here's the deal. Sins of commission. In other words, stuff that I know I shouldn't have done, but I did it anyway. Things that I should not have done, but I did it. I committed that act. I said that, I thought that, I did that act, I committed that. I have committed this act, whatever it might be. We need to take time and we need to spend time before God, and we need to confess that. And it's not because God doesn't know, but it's because I need to come clean. I need to come clean before God. And 1 John 1:9 says that He's just and able and ready to forgive me of that sin and bring me back to this state of righteousness again. He's there and He's ready to do that, which implies that there's something on my part that I have to do, and that is I got to come clean. God, I know I shouldn't have done that, but I did that. I'm sorry. Now, we can't be flippant, and that's what happens. All of us sometimes. And why are we flippant about that? Well, somewhere in our religiosity we have determined, I have to confess this. But in the reality of my life, I enjoyed doing what I did, and I'm not really sorry for it. Hello. Now what? Well, we need to be honest about that. This pursuit of purity is important for us to understand and to own. We have to go after it. And that's not just saying the I'm sorry. I mean, how many times have you had somebody apologize to you and you knew not a single word they said they meant? I mean, right? Yeah, sure we have. Because we were kids or we had kids, and we understand this is how it works. I mean, but it happens in marriages. It happens in friendships. You're like, oh, I'm sorry for that. Well, already you can tell by the tone that okay, whatever, We need to be honest, but there's things that we knew we shouldn't have done that we did, and confessing before God is recognizing the harm that we're doing to ourselves and to others by doing that. David knew he shouldn't have slept with Bathsheba, but he did it anyway, and he had to pay the price for that later. Then there's the other one, that other one that rhymes, commission and omission. See, omission is the things that you should have done, but you didn't do. It's like two ends of the spectrum. Commission, the stuff I shouldn't do, but I find myself doing. The stuff that I shouldn't, that I didn't do, but I know I should have done. Both can be sinful. Both can be sins. Both need a sense of confession. Both create a sense of dirt on us that we need to take care of. Make every effort to be found without spot or blemish is what Peter is saying. Look, he's talked about development, he's talked about relationships, he's talked about love, he's talked about all of these different things, and now he's summing it all up. Look, you've got to make every effort. You've got to put some skin in this game. You've got to take part in this process. So let's walk through a little bit of a way that we can help us figure this stuff out. One of the ways that you can do that is just physically going through that and starting with your mind. God, what are some things that I thought about longer than I should have? What are some things I thought about? The devil is going to put things in your path. He's going to cross your mind's eye with stuff and, swipe left, swipe left, swipe left. No, no, no. But sometimes he puts that up and you're like, oh, wait, hold. Wait. I want to look at that. I want to think about that a little longer. And you're thinking about it a little longer than you should, right? And you're lingering on that. And you're thinking about it. That can move to premeditation of things. So you come before God and say, God, show me the things that I've thought about longer than I should have. They were crossing my mind, and the devil's going to do what the devil's going to do, but it doesn't mean I have to take part in it. God, help me to keep swiping left on that. Or maybe it's the other way. God, I really didn't think about their feelings at all when I did what I did. I didn't really think about the end result of if I did this or that. I didn't think about that. I didn't engage my brain at all. I just acted on impulse. I acted on emotion. Oh, man. God, I didn't think. Which sometimes is as bad, isn't it? As if when I think too long, the not thinking at all. What am I watching? What am I seeing? God, what am I looking at that I don't need to be looking at? What am I looking at too long that I don't need to be looking at too long? What am I allowing into my life by what I'm seeing and what I'm watching? And this can be a whole host of things. The point is not for me to point out everybody's stuff they watch. The point is that we become sensitive to the Spirit of God and ask the Spirit of God, reveal to me that which I need to slow my roll on what I'm watching and what I'm seeing and what I'm staring at. See, preachers of old always want to talk about what you shouldn't be watching on TV. What I want you to also be aware of is what you shouldn't be looking at out in the community. What you shouldn't be staring at on your phone. Just because TikTok is fun doesn't mean you need to stare at everything that comes across that screen. We need to be careful. What we see, what we stare at, what we look at. Why? Why is this so important? Make every effort to be found without spot or blemish in the sight, at peace with God and yourself. Make every effort. God, what have I said today that I really shouldn't have said? And see, this one gets complicated, doesn't it? Because we often want to defend what we've said. Well, I didn't intend for you to feel that way. Well, I didn't intend for that to happen. Well, that wasn't my intention. And that could be absolutely valid. It can also be a lie, but it can be absolutely valid. But at some point, we need to realize the power of our words. They affect things. They affect people. And we have to be careful with what we say. Now, we currently live in a time and a place where no matter what you say, somebody's offended by it. Okay? No, that's just the way it is. It doesn't matter what you say. I mean, you got a Burleson coach all up in some hot water because he tried to have an honest conversation. Okay? It's unfortunate for what he's going through. We can try to have honest conversations, and somebody's going to get offended by that. And that's an unfortunate reality that we live in. But it doesn't mean that I shouldn't try to take care of the words that come out of my mouth. I need to be careful with what I say and be cautious, realizing the reality is sometimes people are going to be offended. Here's the thing. Speak with the conviction of Christ. Is what you have said offensive to God? Try to honor that and see where that goes. I mean, Jesus himself says, look, not everything I say you're going to like. I mean, you're going to have brother against brother and father against son, and the gospel's just going to do that. But it doesn't mean I have to look for ways to be snarky. It doesn't mean I have to look for ways to badmouth somebody. It doesn't mean I have to look for ways to do that. I need to be careful with what I say. And the 2020 version of what I say, for those of you that are 80s babies, what comes out of your mouth, be careful. For those of you that are younger than that, be careful what you type. Be careful what you put out there, because that's as strong as the words coming out of your mouth. It's a voice that many have, and you need to be careful with what you are putting out there. It's your voice. Is that the voice that you want people to hear? And there may be truth, and you need to speak truth. But Ephesians even tells us, hey, speak the truth, but do it with love. Do it with redemption in mind, not condemnation in mind. My grandparents had a saying that fits this. I catch more flies with honey than I do with vinegar. And the same can be said with what I say and what I type. Hey, I'm just speaking truth. Man, I'm just typing truth. Yeah, and you're leaving a wake of dead people as you go, too. That's not helpful. We got to be careful. God, forgive me for the stuff I've said, the voice that I have used for me, not for you, for what I want, not what you want. The voice that I used that I didn't care who I hurt. God, help me, forgive me. I want to be different than that. We get to our heart. What's the motivation behind what you do? Man, there can be good motivations, and then there can just be awful motivations. Make every effort to be without spot or blemish. What about your motivation? Is your motivation pure? Is it right? Is it lovely? Is it admirable? Is it something you should consider? Or not? Is it all about you getting yours? Is it all about you being better? Is it all about you climbing the ladder? Is it all about you getting the final word? You know, I found out getting the final word doesn't always win the battle. I read somewhere that when you're in fights, you know, especially those of us that have lion personalities, and I've got one of those, that would be Lion. See, my Southern came out. Because you know me, you know, am I lying? Yeah, no. Am I a lion? Yeah, am I lion? Let me say that correctly. Those of us with those types of leadership, strong-willed, verbal personalities, I can out-talk you by volume. And I may win the battle of the day, but I can lose the war at the end. Don't trade a battle for the war. It's not worth it. What's your motivation there? What's your motivation? What about your relationships? Are you in a relationship that honors God or doesn't honor God? Now, that can be a dating relationship. That can be a friendship. Are you in a relationship that's honoring God or not honoring God? And for those of you that are keeping score at home in your dating life, you're likely not to win that lost person to Jesus just because they're dating you. But let me walk down a different path, especially for those of us that are 30s and up, and we're married, we're happily married, but you know, there is a temptation to the reconnection of friends from times past on the internet. And I have been witness to too many divorces and too many families breaking up simply because of a rekindled relationship that came up on the internet. Oh, we're just friends. Oh, we're just talking. Well, it can turn into a whole lot more. Well, we didn't do anything. Hello. Let's go back to our mind. Let's go back to our eyes. Let's go back to our mouth. Let's go back to our motive. Just because you're mad at your spouse this week doesn't mean you need to go find a new friend on Facebook. You got to be careful. It's a dangerous playground. And we all seem to like to play on it. Be careful. It's dangerous. You can get burned real quick. Make every effort to be without spot or blemish, at peace. Am I at peace? Are you at peace with God? Are you at peace with those around you? Are you at peace with yourself? You see, making every effort to be without spot or blemish means that I need to spend the time with a spiritual garden hose and washing myself off in order to enjoy the close presence of God. Let me give you a couple of things and I'll close. You know, some people are audible learners and they listen and they can hear, and other people are verbal learners. They have to talk their way through it in order to learn. And then there's a growing number of people that are kinesthetic or tactile learners. And so I want to give you all something to hold on to today if you're a kinesthetic or a tactile learner. Because if you're an audible or verbal learner, you've already heard what's been said today and you're digesting it. But for some others, you might need a tactile or kinesthetic thing. So here's what I want to share with you today. Because the natural inclination for our lives, if we're not careful, is to be in an opposition role to God. And it goes something like this. And we might need to be aware of what is going on in us as we go too. We come to God and we can say, God, I often come to you like this. I want to get things done. I'm going to make this happen. And I'm not sure what you want, but I need this and I'm going to make this happen. And we live a lot of our lives with our fists toward God. And we may read His Word and we may pray to Him, but we're like, yeah, but I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to get this done. I'll worry about that later. When maybe we need to come before God and we say, God, this is the natural inclination I have to fight you, to fight your will, to fight obedience, to fight your desires for my life and try to do everything on my own and make everything happen on myself. But today I confess to you that that's my natural inclination, and I want you to change me to surrender to you and to be open to what you want and to do things your way, the way that you would want them done, and not my way, but your will be done. A second way that we may understand and experience this is to say, God, it's all about me, it's all about what I want, but it's also, this is mine. I don't want to give that away. I don't want to give that up. That's my thing. It's my way. It's my money. It's my house. It's my toys. It's my stuff, God. Why do you want me to give that up? Why do you want me to take it away? And that's the natural thing. And some of you are, you're way too spiritual to let those words come out of your mouth, but you've let them cross your mind. No, it's mine. I want that. God, I confess to you today that this is my natural inclination. Create in me a heart of generosity. To realize that Psalm 24:1 says the earth and everything in it is yours. It's not mine, it's yours. It's on loan to me. It's on loan for me to steward and to manage, to bring you glory and the gospel to a lost world. God, let me be generous today. Sometimes our natural inclination is to cross our arms. And we critique, and we spectate, and we complain, and we gripe. Well, that's not how I'd do it. Well, I don't know why they didn't ask me. I got the answers. Well, if you don't do it my way, well, I'm just going to be mad about it. That's awful the way they're doing that. That's hateful. I don't understand that. This is awful. Why are you doing that? God, I confess today that this is my natural inclination. Help me to be others focused today. See the posture that changes. God, I fight you, but I want to stop. God, I am selfish. Make me generous. God, I'm hateful and I complain a lot. Help me to think about others before myself. Are you making every effort? Why is this important? Because the look of hope that you have because of Christ must lead to a life of holiness. The look of hope. Jesus is coming. This is awesome. This is going to be wonderful. But to have that hope, it must produce a life of holiness today. I surrender Make me generous. Help me see others first. This is the way of the cross. This is the way of Christ. Have you come to terms and are you at peace with that? Make every effort.